In the coronavirus epicentre of Wuhan, only the brave venture outdoors. This drone shows how the deadly disease outbreak has shut down a city of 11 million people.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And as the coronavirus continues to spread, with the latest tally at 906 dead and more than 40,000 infected, it's no surprise that fear and fake news has also been spreading on social media, like this popular conspiracy theory.
Is it just me, or does that look more like they are preparing mass graves in advance?
That, we need hardly tell you, was not true. And nor was this.
Fortune cookies, mee goreng noodles, wagyu beef may contain traces of the coronavirus.
Nor were stories that 2.8 million were already infected, or that
people are literally dropping dead.
To be fair, most of Australia's news media has done an excellent job debunking such myths and reporting the facts.
Now, firstly, you should not be avoiding Chinatown or any other area with a high Chinese population. You cannot get coronavirus from imported food. It can only live briefly on surfaces. Garlic and sesame oil will not stop you from contracting it. The virus has not mutated into a more lethal strain.
But some fake news has managed to make its way into the mainstream.
Chinese blogger Wang Menyan has apologised for eating a bat in a video which has sickened millions of viewers. She tucked into the bat at a Wuhan restaurant in the city where the coronavirus first took hold.
That 9 News Watch Facebook video was viewed more than 2 million times and is on track to be its most popular ever. Naturally, the Daily Mail also wanted to cash in on the clicks, and it too linked the Chinese blogger to the outbreak, posting the video of Wang and another bat soup eater, prompting a flood of racist comments like this.
And now they're eating bats that are giving them a disease. Good. Sick of their shit.
Definitely karma for killing all the animals they do in such a horrific way.
But the video of Wang was not actually filmed in Wuhan, or even in China. It was shot 3 years ago in Palau, in the Pacific, where bat soup is a delicacy. And while coronavirus may indeed come from bats, swine flu comes from pigs, and bird flu comes from chickens, and it's not just Chinese who eat them. Meanwhile, 7 News was showing footage of people apparently falling down dead, ripped off from the internet. So, was that real? Unlikely. The World Health Organization says coronavirus is an illness with flu-like symptoms such as fever, cough, shortness of breath and breathing difficulties, and sudden collapses would be atypical. The Daily Mail has also offered us this exclusive.
How Chinese students are avoiding the coronavirus travel ban and sneaking into Australia by lying on their departure cards and bragging about it once they clear customs.
And on social media, the Mail was taking that further and claiming that lies could kill.
So careless. They are putting thousands of Australians in danger of contracting the deadly virus.
Angry emoji indeed. But on a closer read, the story relied on a series of text messages from one student who claimed he'd changed his immigration form to say he'd arrived from Hong Kong, which is not subject to the government's travel ban. Students cheating the ban, thousands at risk. A classic beat-up. And the lying theme was also picked up by the Daily Telegraph.
Parents masking travel at schools.
Some families are allegedly dodging the suggested fortnight of quarantine by lying about their travel.
The source for that story was one mother from North Ryde, who said some parents were claiming they'd been to Bali when they'd actually been to China. And some telereaders reckoned they knew who the culprits were.
Parents who have visited China in the last 4 weeks might not want to tell others this and may use the excuse, "me not understand English," when asked.
That sort of scaremongering and finger-pointing was being fanned by News Corp's Sydney and Melbourne tabloids, with the Herald Sun calling it Chinese virus pandemonium, and the Telegraph running this message on its front page.
Back to school plea.
China kids, stay home!
For which editor Ben English issued a half-hearted apology.
Our headline was in no way intended to single out Chinese people. If people have taken offence at their headline, then I would like to apologise to them.
Meanwhile, Sky News host Gary Hardgrave had his own crazy theory about the global health emergency.
This thing has been cooked up, it's pretty evident, cooked up by some mad scientists in China. I don't care what anyone says.
Over in London, meanwhile, the Sun was offering a helpful, simple cure.
Shoppers amazed that Dettol kills deadly coronavirus, as it's listed on bottles.
And their source for that? One Facebook post from a shopper in Britain. But within 24 hours, The Sun had cancelled its scoop with a follow-up warning.
Dettol warns there is no evidence its spray can kill deadly coronavirus from Wuhan.
Despite that setback, The Sun was at it again a few days later, peddling the claim that a glass of hot toddy, yes, that's whiskey mixed with honey, will beat the deadly flu. All because a 25-year-old British teacher in Wuhan had got better after having the drink. Not quite 100% proof. So, given that social media is the main breeding ground for this sort of misinformation and fake news, what are the social media giants doing to fight it? Well, their fact-checkers are certainly working overtime. Facebook has promised to limit the spread of information flagged as false and is warning people against trying to share the content. Twitter is threatening to remove people who spread false information from its platform and is topping its search page with an invitation to know the facts. And Google now has this SOS alert at the top of coronavirus searches, along with latest news from the WHO. So, are these efforts working? Not entirely. Queensland MP George Christensen told his Facebook followers last week of one patient who'd presented to a local hospital simply because they'd eaten Chinese food. Seems the fear is still out there and ready to be fanned. And it's not just social media that is to blame, to judge by a depressing report published last month.
In media's Wild West, news consumers struggle to find truth, trust and transparency.
Yes, Australian journalism everywhere is biased and full of beat-ups, plus polluted with opinion and commercial influence. That is according to a survey of some 2,000 news consumers by the broadcast watchdog, the ACMA. Now, that will not come as a great surprise to fans of Media Watch, which regularly reveals how bad news and current affairs coverage can be. From campaigning front pages like these...
The Great Divider.
ScoMo, ready to go.
To trashy tabloid telly like this.
Scandal.
She wanted a celebrity boyfriend.
Abuse.
She's been called a fiend and a monster.
And bloody lies.
But what is shocking about ACMA's finding is how much trust has been lost as a result. On impartiality, almost 90% of respondents to the survey, yes, 90%, think news is made more dramatic and sensational to attract audiences, while some 85% reckon news is reported with a particular point of view. Key culprits in that, according to ACMA, are celebrity presenters on current affairs shows who have an opinion on everything, from climate protesters to sports stars.
Personally, I'd leave them all super glued to wherever they do it, and you just put little witches' hats around them and or use them as a speed bump.
He should have been slapped as a child. He's a spoilt little Greek brat who's probably being treated like a prince. He is a little creep, and I'm sad to say he's Australian.
And when it comes to the important divide between news and advertising, consumers can barely see the line at all. Over the years, we've shown you plenty of examples of that, like when cash from a retailer...
This back-to-school segment brought to you by Officeworks.
...buys you a story in the bulletin.
School is back, and that means going shopping for all those back-to-school essentials. Lisa's using Officeworks' school list service.
Or when Today crosses to a far-flung tech reporter without disclosing his all-expenses-paid junket.
Our tech expert Trevor Long is at Apple headquarters in California. Trev, good morning to you. There are two new flagship models. Tell us about the iPhone XS and XS Max.
Nice.
ACMA's findings are stark. More than 80% of audiences say news is influenced by large advertisers. 77% say news bulletins feature commercial content without properly disclosing it. 76% say the media push companies they have a stake in. And 65% reckon freebies buy news time. And journalists are again shown to be no more trustworthy than snake oil salesmen. Some 83% of respondents to ACMA's survey believe journalists do not take enough care to check facts and report accurately. These are staggering numbers, but to be fair, they don't apply to all journalism. The nightly TV news bulletins, for example, are seen as trustworthy, and the ABC is praised by several respondents. But it's clear the worst of journalism, on TV, radio, online, print and social media, is tarnishing every brand. Sasha Molotouris, a former Sydney Morning Herald journalist who helped compile research for ACMA in his role at UTS Centre for Media Transition, told Media Watch,
This new research is deeply concerning. We already knew that Australians have major trust issues with the news, but what this research shows is the depth of the concern among Australians about bias and commercial influence.
So, given that it is so bad, what is the TV and radio regulator going to do about it? Well, not much, because its only real power, as we've often pointed out, is to enforce weak codes of practice drawn up by the broadcasters, which is perhaps why it's publishing the report, in the hope of shaming the industry to get tougher on itself. What's the chance of that? Not much. And it's not just in broadcast news, where ACMA is the watchdog, that the problem exists. Take this, for example, another world exclusive from our friends at NW Magazine.
Katie and Bradley's secret romance.
Undercover lovers exposed after 3 months of dating.
Yes, actors Katie Holmes and Bradley Cooper are having a hot hookup. And here's the proof, a paparazzi photo of the couple mid-pash. But is it true? Well, no. And it's not a world exclusive, just more lies from NW editor Sebastian van der Zwaan and his crew. The photo is actually of Bradley Cooper kissing his then-girlfriend, Irina Shayk, 5 years ago, as NW doubtless knew. But there's more. Lies, that is.
Miley's revenge baby.
Twisted plot to destroy Liam.
First bump pics.
That cover story in the same issue comes with a double-page spread inside showing the, quote, bub on board. But here is the original photo of Miley, taken on Zuma Beach in Malibu, and as you can see, it's quite clear that NW has bloated Miley's belly. Outrageous, isn't it? But they do it all the time. Last year we busted NW for using similar tricks to make Miley look skeletal, trimming her stomach and giving her a new hand. They also made Angelina Jolie look like she was starving by adding shading and contrast. And they pretended old pictures of Katie Holmes on a movie set, playing a struggling single mother, were current pictures of her in real life, wasting away. NW is notorious for publishing absolute bullshit. So, here's an amazing fact. Its publisher, Bauer Media Group, is a member of the Press Council. That's amazing because the Press Council guidelines say that members must
ensure that factual material in news reports is accurate and not misleading.
And
provide a correction
if it is not. So, why on earth has the Press Council done nothing about NW's lies? Don't they watch Media Watch? The Press Council says it can only act on complaints, but why on earth is that the rule? Another example of how regulation is failing to keep the media honest. But finally to the Federal Police and its failed investigation into yet another piece of fake news in the Daily Telly last year.
Lord Mayor Clover Moore has been told by the federal government to rein in the hundreds of thousands of dollars her council is spending on international and domestic travel if she is serious about lecturing Australia on climate change.
That Telly exclusive was a grubby political hit job by the Emissions Reduction Minister Angus Taylor on Sydney City Council, which was based on a letter signed by him and given to the Telegraph before the council had even seen it. Naturally, the Telly gobbled it up.
In his letter, Mr Taylor claims the council spent more than $15 million on domestic and international travel.
But the minister's figures, which he claimed were from the council's website, were wildly inflated, and the document was a forgery.
Somebody did fake a document. Now, maybe people don't care about that, maybe they do, but somehow, somewhere, someone mocked up a document that online that suggested that the council was paying millions of dollars in travel when in fact it was in the thousands.
To get to the bottom of where that fake document came from, the matter was referred to the Federal Police in December. But last week it declared the whodunit could not be solved, saying,
It is unlikely further investigation will result in obtaining sufficient evidence to substantiate a Commonwealth offence.
In dropping the investigation, which cleared Angus Taylor of any wrongdoing, the AFP said it took into account
the low level of harm and the apology made by the Minister, along with the significant level of resources required to investigate.
And that explanation had a furious Sydney Lord Mayor last week alleging a political fix.
For them to think there's no harm there, I think is extraordinary. And, you know, they seem to be happy to go after journalists, but to not investigate, you know, where this originated.
Clover Moore's line about going after journalists is a reference to AFP raids on the ABC and News Corp reporter Annika Smethurst last year, in relation to which the police are still threatening prosecution for publishing government secrets. Which is why the head of ABC Investigations, John Lyons, asked the AFP boss on Twitter,
how are you able to conclude investigations so quickly into Angus Taylor, yet after 18 months, ABC's Dan Oakes and Sam Clark still face possible criminal charges?
It is a good question, and one we also put to the AFP. But, surprise, surprise, it declined to comment, except to say the investigation is ongoing. So, what's the take home from these 2 episodes? Well, you could conclude that the police are more interested in chasing journalists who print the truth than they are in people spreading lies. And you could see that as the biggest failure of regulation of them all. That's all from us tonight. There's more on our website, including a statement from the AFP. And don't forget, Media Bites on social media every Thursday. But for now, until next week, goodbye.